Hey everyone,
Hello.
Mo here.
Nice to be here again.
Yeah, and my good friend Ken.
Yes.
Yeah, so for me, I have a background in tech, specifically AI, and Ken is an expert in neuroscience and loves psychology. We talk about it all the time.
Yes.
Today we want to talk about how cultures and society has evolved over time, and like it feels like we're on an inflection point to massive amounts of changes in what it means to be a human individual living in such a complicated, ever changing landscape of the modern world. It's like
Yeah.
freaking scary when you think about what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And most people don't even know
Yeah.
about what's on the horizon.
No, we can't predict anymore because it's changing so fast. Like
Oh
how,
my
how
god.
human relations can change, how communities and how friendships will change in the future. We it's difficult to predict now because of things are happening so fast.
It's so scary what's about to
It's
happen.
quite scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will get into that. Why it's scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hope you stick around, hope you enjoy it.
Yes.
You know, like Ken, have you heard your elders saying that the younger generation is doomed?
All the time.
Right?
Yeah.
I think, and the thing is,
They might
right?
have a point.
Yeah, you might have a point. But this is like a recurring theme throughout history, right? If you go back to the Roman era, the Romans have written down the younger generation are doomed.
That's happened. Yeah. There is. I've read this. Like Greek philosophy. So before Greek philosophies were all verbal. So all the debates happens between philosophers. They're all verbal. But then there was a point where writing down the arguments and debating by writing became more and more prominent. So the older people who've been debating by verbally, they think the future generation is doomed because you won't remember anything if you just write them down, right? You just unloading all your arguments on paper, so you're not actually thinking yourself properly. Which is, I mean, that's their view, but then it turned out it actually made it better if you actually write it down and debate. So the recurring theme is the older generation tend to have a pessimistic view of how the younger generation behave, but so far human beings haven't, we're okay so far.
Yeah, we've survived, but this time it could be different.
This time it could be doomed.
Yeah, sounds like the ego talking type of thing. Like whatever your generation is, it's
Yeah, it's not ego. Perhaps it's more. It's normal to think that your own era as the most normal one.
yeah, of course.
Right?
I mean, yeah.
So
So
for
I
our
meant that.
age,
Yeah.
perhaps the 2000s were the most normal for us. Like that's where we grew up. All the culture symbols and everything, we know about them. But for younger generation, maybe 2010 to 2020 is their decade of
Yeah, but
understanding.
things are changing faster and faster. So like,
Yes.
right now over the past 100 years, 100 years ago, most people on earth worked on farms or in agriculture at least.
Yeah.
My grandparents, well, even my granddad, like they owned humongous amounts of land and farms and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then we sped fast forward.
My grandfather owned it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like all of our
He owned
families. Yeah.
rubber farm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Rubber plants.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, he has a whole rubber farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, but then like in Britain, this transition from agriculture to industry and now to the modern world has happened over hundreds of years. So a lot of like
200 years.
yeah, a lot of the grandparents of like British people you'd find like native British people.
Yeah.
It had some sort of like where they were in industry like blacksmith or tailoring or some profession.
Yeah.
But coming from Bangladesh and for Ken coming
From Myanmar.
Myanmar,
Yeah.
and it's the average person watching. I don't know which country you're going to be from, but yeah, the average person in the world, their grandparents would have been in agriculture.
Yeah.
So
In the farming industry.
the thing is, this is 100 years ago to now, but then things are changing faster and faster and faster. And 10 years ago, it wasn't as popular to be on your phone. Now your phone is part of yourself.
Yes.
And so
and also the Asian countries, they have skipped technology eras. So in a British culture, we have like telephone and then like internet and then mobile internet, right? It has a line of how technology shift over time very slowly. But for the Asians, just completely just from nothing to mobile internet, right? And then mobile internet becomes cheap, right? So everybody use it. and just skip a generation of technology, which is good for them because they can enjoy the modern technology much more easily. Because now, even in Burma, everybody has smartphones, cheap ones from China, of course, but they have smartphones and they can do transactions, they can call people, right? They can have internet, so they, even though people are poor there, but they have smartphones now. Even the poorest people have smartphones, which is very good for the culture as a whole.
So everything's changing on a massive scale, right? I think
Much faster than
yeah. So these mobile phones have are part of that change. But both of us, we're now living in the UK, in
Yes.
London specifically,
Yes.
and it's very different from what our parents and grandparents experienced.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the thing is, we are still old enough to have felt and experienced a much stronger community feeling that I think, at least, like a lot of my friends who aren't an immigrant community, from an immigrant community, perhaps might not have felt, especially the more some of the my English friends. Um, what I mean by that is, for me, growing up in my Bengali community in East London, there was quite a strong community feeling. Everyone felt like one
Yeah.
together. Like you sort of knew everyone. If you were Bengali, especially
Your
within.
families are more together too.
Yeah.
From generation wise, your grandparents are together
Yeah.
around, right?
And for me, if I met as a kid, if I met another Bengali kid, it's very likely that their parents would know my parent,
Yes.
because our parents would have gone to school together, just because it wasn't a small community, but it was like a very integrated community where everyone knew each other.
Yes.
And so what we mentioned earlier about worrying about what your elders say, but I mean that sort of existed for me growing up.
Yes. Yeah. It existed for me too. I lived in Myanmar for 13 years, and then I moved to Sweden. But when I lived in Myanmar, like the grandparents and parents, like they usually, everybody lived in the one house basically. My mom's side, like they used to, like, they have a big house, and like the whole generation lived there. Like it's quite, and it's quite normal, I mean, there is some privacy if you try to have it.
If you try to have it.
If you try to have it, but most of the time they traded privacy. I mean, they don't even know the value of privacy because they always lived in that community.
If that's what you know, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing they know. But there is a strong sense of family bonding, family bondship, and community bondship, because you just know, and you know what to expect, and there is, you never feel. One of the things I never felt lonely when I was there. Like loneliness was a foreign emotion that I never felt before until I moved to Sweden. But we'll talk about that later.
In a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I grew up here. I was born here, and so I grew up here. But in Bangladesh, we've got this concept of it's called bari, which is like a mini village, in a
Yes.
sense.
Yeah.
So you can, depending on how the family size, but within a bari, it's all just one family, and it's like gated. It's like a gated off complex of different buildings, where each house of different houses, and each house has just one family.
Yeah.
They're all sort of connected, but like in Bangladesh, you have your own like mini village with just your family.
Yeah, it's create a mini tribal feeling, but it's only your own family. So I mean, you aren't just live next door, right? All your neighbors are your family. That create that, and I have a sense of belief that blood is thicker than water, which basically means
I think that's
family
scientifically true.
Family relationships tend to feel emotionally more connected than normal friendships. And if you the Bari idea, I mean, it came from trial and error, from village ideas to tribal, and then now Bari, right? So that feeling of connection, it's so well built into the community itself that people just can't think of an alternative. Like that's the best they have, and now perhaps that's changing for them now when they have no modern technology. We don't know how that will change for the Bengali culture. Yeah.
Yeah, even in Bangladesh, everyone's moving to cities, right? Because that's where opportunity and money is.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you move in cities, you have to live alone, or with a group, or with a partner, right? You tend to become isolated from the deeper, the wider community, the family community.
It's a bit more.
Yeah, so isolated household scattered around the city based on how cheap the housing is.
I know.
It's more economical decision rather than But then with Bari's like everybody just lived there. There's no economical decision to be
Yeah,
made. You're like,
you don't worry about moving out just because when you get married, you just
yeah,
go and live with
yeah,
your
yeah.
spouse.
With your culture, does the woman move in?
The woman
The
moves into
woman
the
move
guy's
in.
place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's the same with Burmese
yeah.
culture.
But also at the same time, the woman, like the guy doesn't move out. Nowadays, it's common to move out anyway. But with that Bari idea, it's basically you already have your accommodation that your granddad like
But
purchased the land and built.
100 years ago.
Yeah, he built all of that, so you already have, like you already have a house.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So there's none of that to worry about. Also, you know what it is, man. Like you have a for me at least, we have a lake, our own lake.
That's badass.
You just go and swim there every day if you want, and go and fish there if you want.
Your grandparents are style. They thought about the swimming.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It's pretty like some within the body is like chicken, some cat. It's its own. You've got your entire own little mini village. But everything you need. It's sick.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean.
And also, it started when conflicts start to happen within the Bari. Like how do they resolve? Because let's say one aunt fight with another aunt, and the whole community get involved. Like there might be some balances between relationships, and then how you shouldn't be too angry at things or something like that. Have you faced that before?
I don't have
in terms of conflicts happening.
Yeah, I don't have a story about it, to be honest. But yeah, I think it would be similar to you, where it's the elders, whoever's the oldest, usually has the largest sway.
Yes. Yeah. Their opinions. They'll get notified immediately if a fight happens in my culture, and then the older grandparents or even the older sibling tend to have the most sway as well in terms of influence in a family community. And then whatever they say people tend to listen, and especially if that person has an intimidating presence.
Yeah, usually the eldest, like the elders do have a more intimidating presence, and even with the language, like my younger brothers and sisters will not call me by my name.
Yes.
And that's a form of respect.
Yes, that's true.
Right, and so that sort of respect is sort of encoded even within the language.
Yes. The language, Asian language tend to have a more family-based language structure. So even the pronouns, there's some rules we have to follow. We can't use a certain pronoun for older people. So in Burmese, there's Jano, which is, there's like 3 or 4 words for I, and one of the words is too rude to say to an older sibling. One of them. But you say that to your partner. You can say that word to your partner or to your friend of equal age, but not to your older player. Your older will punch you in the face.
It's the same word, like I.
Why are you rude?
Is it I?
It's the same word, I. It's just I, but because of the pronoun difference, you have to say appropriate pronoun to appropriate age.
It's so interesting, right?
And if you say that, the same age pronoun to your grandparent.
Oh wow! God.
A quick slap to your arm.
Oh wow!
Sure. Yeah.
Damn.
But yeah, and also discipline is heavily reinforced in a family community. So there are less rebellious characters in the family
because everyone's in it together.
Yeah, everybody fate is binded together. So if there's rebellious character, they get heavily punished or they leave the community.
Of course,
They just leave, right? But most of the people don't leave because they enjoy that sense of community connectedness, and it's very, very heavily reinforced.
Yeah, you're better off to all
better
together.
off to be together than far away.
Yeah. So now moving on to the modern world.
Yes.
Everything is transactional. Everyone's a tiny little boxed up unit. You, if you get married or have a kid, the onus of raising the child is on the mother and father, and everyone's stressed out in raising a child.
Yeah. I mean, there is a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And
right.
And it's literally true.
It is true.
Yeah, because the mother can't handle everything, right?
Exactly, yeah. But the thing is now, with the modern world, parents raising a kid are thinking, how on earth does everyone else do it?
And you have like a mountain of parenting books
to
tell you how to do it. But the truth is my mothers and my aunts, I grew up with my uncles and aunts as well as my mother, because it's natural that the siblings tend to take care of each other's children. I actually see some of my aunts as my real mother sometimes because I'm so close to them, and it's very weird in this culture saying your aunt is as close to you as your mother, but in my culture it is very normal, and also very the reality is mothers lose sleep when they have children because babies are annoying. Babies, as beautiful and cute as they are, they tend to be very demanding, and you can't just ignore them because they need help. So because you have help from your siblings and your wider community,
So
the
much
mothers
easier.
can get sleep realistically, and she can be more.
You can be a
more
better,
content.
yeah,
Like a mother
yeah.
if you're better asleep,
If
right?
if
It's
you're
a
well
realistic.
rested and you're not,
You tend to become more patient with the child, for
in the first
example.
place,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you're not losing sleep. So, and these sort of things we take for granted, but now we realize when we don't have them anymore in the modern world, in the modern culture, when especially single mother's household. If you're a single mother watching, you understand the struggle. You understand how annoying to have 3 children running around the house, and you have to work and you have to take care of them, right? And then you have to have a nanny coming in. It's the mother, their brains are literally fried. That they just can't handle the load of so much, the cognitive load of so much of that happening. Because parenting is hard, especially doing it alone.
Yeah.
Very hard, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I love playing with my nieces and nephews, but if it was for more than like a few hours,
You do feel the strain of their
yeah, it's
demanding.
just non-stop. It's just
It's
non-stop.
yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, children play non-stop, and if you can't keep up, you really do. It's like
I don't have the energy for all of that,
Exactly.
But like if it's passed around, like I
Yeah.
can keep all of them entertained. Like well, how many? 5. I can keep most of them entertained for
Yes.
like a good while, but I'll get tired. But I'll need to pass it on.
Yeah, exactly.
um,
And also, there is a much deeper connection between in-laws. So, if your wife and husband, they when they integrate into the family community, they become much more involved in the family. And so, like sister-in-law usually means just sister, in my language.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it just means sister, right? It doesn't. I mean, there is a word for sister-in-law, but usually you expect to have an actual sister to a sister-in-law, right?
Equivalent.
The equivalent, yeah. So when you integrate into the family, you become part of the family, like literally part of the family, and you have to call your parents-in-law as actual parents. You have to say
Yeah.
mom and dad to the parents-in-law. So
Same in Bengal. I think the mum and dad is in Western culture as well. That's quite. I've
yeah, but
seen
now we don't do Western culture don't do that anymore.
Oh really? Yeah.
They because I mean, when's the last time you go to parents-in-law like, in Western couples? I mean, they do go over, of course. I mean, to meet their parents, but there's not much like deeper connection between the family members. Because you don't see your mother-in-law as a real mother, but
Less so
in
now.
Burmese culture, you're expected to see a mother-in-law as a real mother, because the mother-in-law will give you advice and treat you as an actual daughter if you're the wife, or the treat you as an actual son. Um, yeah, so that thing is very absent when I went to Sweden and come here.
Yeah. So what did you see in
England.
Sweden? Yeah.
In Sweden, it's more nuclear families are way more prevalent, of course, because it's a Western culture overall. But the feeling of when I moved to Sweden, is the sense of loneliness started to happen. I mean, because as an immigrant, when you move to a different country, obviously you will get lonely because you don't have friends or family members. But but even then, like I see my friends who are integrated, in the social community, but they also feel lonely because they are not connected to the wider family community. But for me, like when I was growing up, it's weird to tell to my Swedish friends or my UK friends, I say my best friends were my cousins. That's the weird thing to say, but like they were like
Because
that's
you
the
grew
only.
up with them,
I
you
grew up
played with them.
they're my best friends, and I tell all my secrets to them as well. I mean, we call them brother and sisters. Like we're literally brother and sisters. And I don't have a best friend in Burma. It doesn't the concept doesn't really exist. We are friends, but not best friend. But in Sweden, and I learned the meaning of a best friend.
So what does that mean? So how is that different to what you had in Burma? That's so interesting.
So best friend in here, right? It means a type of friend that you tend to see more as a family member, like a part of you're very close to them and you say all your secrets. I mean, for women best friends, that's the case. Like you tell your secrets to your best friend, right? To you tell like the things that happen to them to your best friend. But for a guy best friend, it's usually talk about like your hobbies, play games together, or you go to football together, right? That's their guy's best friend situation. But for me, like the best friend, the whole meaning didn't the concept of it didn't really click in my mind. It didn't happen in
Why?
the Burmese culture.
Why?
Because
Why?
because when I go to school, right, and when I have friends in school, I did is it being I've been taught or it's been expected that when you leave school, there's almost strangers. Yeah,
In Sweden,
in Burma.
in Burma.
Yeah, in Burma. When you're school friends, when you leave school, that you don't really talk to them outside of school.
But I mean,
It's
really?
not a thing. No, it's not a thing.
Really?
Yeah, it's not a thing. Where I grew up, it's not really a
Oh
thing.
wow.
I mean, people
So
probably
they just
do.
you just saw your schoolmates as acquaintances.
Basically, yeah.
Really?
So yeah, basically.
so
So
interesting.
I go to school and then I leave home and then I see my classmate outside of school like hey. That's it. Just say hi. But that's what I meant. Like I don't have a best friend. I mean that's a case for most. I'm not an exception. That was normal. So classmates could not be best friends, but my cousins were my best friend because that's who I hang out the most, and especially and cousins have multiple age range. So I have a best friend who's 5 years older than me, 2 years younger than me, right? Because of cousins, right? You don't really have same age all the time, but yeah. So
That's
I
so
mean, I don't really
interesting.
see. I mean, because the concept of best friend doesn't exist. I just see my cousins as family and the rest as acquaintance. There's nothing in the middle.
Because I think the sense of family bonding was so strong.
It's so strong that
That-
everything else feel like an acquaintance in comparison. But when I went to Sweden, that's when I have my first best
Because
friend.
family bond, well, the greater family bond, well, how would we say? At least the community bonding
The
was.
wider family bond, where I was stripped out of it, right? Because I moved to a different country, and now I had to have a best friend, and I understood what a best friend meant when I had the best friend.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So you had a best friend in Sweden when
Yes, yeah, I did. Yeah, I had two best friends, which I hang out with quite often, and then I realized that I actually see them as more kind of like my family.
Yeah.
Like I see him as a brother.
That's the place they take in your
a
mind,
brother,
isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm like, maybe he's like my cousin.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So that's how it was. But now because I'm older now, I've been living in Western countries for longer than I lived in Burma. So now for me, best friends are obviously of course,
Yeah.
You're my best friend. I consider you as my best friend, and then I have two more as my best friend. But the rest are friends or acquaintances, which is normal for most people to have that balance of 2 or 3 very close, and then the rest, which are just friends or business friends.
It's like a circle. Circles.
Yes, yeah. What about you? You had classmates who were your best friends, right? When you
Yeah,
when
I
you went
think
to school.
yeah, because for me, I grew up entirely in the UK. I don't know. I don't think my so I don't think my experience of best friends is as similar because for whatever reason, number one, Bengali family, very large family,
Yes.
a very large extended family, constantly visiting every weekend. Growing up for me, would visit one cousin or another, or multiple cousins every weekend, or even in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
People are always coming and going. This is in the 90s. Growing up, everyone's coming and going. You're always visiting people. So for me, naturally, I'm an introvert. Nowadays, I'm much less of an introvert. Well, I'm basically not an introvert nowadays. But but I was much more of an introvert. But still, as an introvert, you're constantly around people, and so you know how to socialize. In terms of best friends, for some reason or another, I've had a best friend. So I was born with my best friend. Pretty much as soon as I was born, was a baby. Basically because I was a baby. I was another kid in the same building because my dad and his dads were mates, and so I grew up.
Because your neighbor was your best friend.
But my neighbor was my best friend. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I went to school. I went to school with him first, but then I moved, and of course I would come round to see him. We were just little kids playing Lego. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And I went to a different school, and then I had a best friend there. But then that guy was a bit naughty, so then when I went to the next year, they separated us. And I think for a few years I didn't really have any best.
Your parents separated you from.
No, sorry, the teachers.
Ah.
They separated us, so they
Okay.
put me in one class, they put him in the other. And so
Interesting.
naturally we just, but we were best friends in like nursery or
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I was
Yeah.
like 3, 4.
Before first grade.
Before year 1, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I think for first few years I didn't have like a best friend, but then I think by the latter of like primary school, yeah, again best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for some reason I've always like, yeah, I think maybe it's one of those things where like you always have a best friend. Maybe it's like a Western thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, I've had lots of cousins, of course, and we would always go over, and we were very close.
Mm.
But for me, I don't know what it is. Maybe age difference, or what. For one reason or another, my actual best friends weren't my cousins.
Yeah. They're either neighbors
We're
or
also
classmates.
we're very close, but not friends. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but brothers,
Brothers
but
close.
not friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that
Got it.
distinction.
Got it. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Mm. But who will you share your hobbies with? Was that your best friend or your cousins? Your usual hobbies.
I think I would share my hobbies with anyone that would listen. To be honest with you, I think I was probably a bit of an annoying kid. um, for me, let's see. Yeah, because like for a while I was into Pokemon, and
Mm.
my best friend was into it. But then, yeah, depending on what I was into, different people would be into whatever I was into. I would just share it with whoever was also interesting. I don't think I had like a specific person for whatever hobby or for whatever interest,
Yeah.
if that
Okay.
makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Back in the day, like when I was younger, when you go out with the family. Another thing I want to say is we have a spontaneous.
Oh, I love this story.
Yeah.
I love this story. Yeah.
Yeah, spontaneous plans we make is kind of funny. So in Burma, I mean, probably it's my family quirk, or maybe not be the same for other families in Burma. But my family quirk is basically my uncle will come, and there is a bell on every apartment. So you just do the bell, and then the bell's connected to the apartment. So the bell, and then I'm like, Uncle, what's happening? And then my uncle's like, we'll go to the beach right now. Pack your bags. You're gonna be in my car in 10 minutes. And then we're like, yeah, beach time. And then my mom would pack
That's so fun.
like within 20 minutes, we just pack, and then we just go there, and then we have a week beach trip with no plans.
That's
like
so
literally
fun.
on the day. And then and it happens so often. And then we one day we're like, oh, let's go to a pagoda somewhere, or let's go to like a tourist attraction place just out of nowhere. Like, let's go. And then people, maybe because here professional schedules are a lot more emphasized, and then like you have to follow according
yeah.
to the rota. There's a rota of work you have to do. But in Burma, like people are poor and there's nobody working. Right. The reality is the poverty of the country, because there's no strict rota of even when you have work, you don't have strict rotas. You can just go right when you have like just tell your boss like, bro, I'm gonna take a break to beach. Boss like, oh, cool, bro. As long as we have someone else covering, and we just get the hell out. And then so we have that all the time, and there's that sense of surprise that is, I feel that it's lost when I came to this Sweden or the UK. In the UK, right, when you have made plans with someone, especially in London,
You have to book
you have
it
to
in.
book 2 weeks or a month ahead, or even longer, because people have things that they have planned already. And I
100%.
mean, it is when people give time to you, right? It is a privilege, because people are always busy.
Super busy.
And if people give time, that means you're actually
Important.
as friends, So, but in Burma, it's not like that. Your friends or your family will be like, just come down. We're gonna go somewhere.
It's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad has a lot of friends, because that's just who he's very social. And so his friends could just say like, bro, come down, let's go to. So we call this coffee shops, but it's not really a coffee shop. It's more of a tea shop. But we go there. Guys go there to socialize. It's like a bar here in the UK.
But they don't drink there.
No, they drink coffee or tea, and mostly
That's
tea.
healthier, man. Yeah.
they drink tea. Yeah, alcohol is frowned upon in Burma.
I think I see those sort of shops in Bangladesh. I've been there in Bangladesh only a couple of times, but I've seen those type of shops. I think.
And
Yeah.
guys hang out there all the time. So my
Yeah.
dad, like, he loves hanging out with his friends in the tea shops. We call it the tea shops. But yeah, and then he go there every day. His friends will come, bro, come down. Then okay, let's go. So and then even when he's working, he will go out and this, yeah. But here everything has to be planned, booked ahead. Otherwise, spontaneity and surprise is something it can bring some joy to your life, in my opinion. And if it's lost completely, I mean, of course there should be a balance between some surprise and some booking. Of course, I don't like right now, because I'm used to this culture now. Like, I don't like when people just like come down. I'm like, bro, no, I'm doing something here.
Sounds a bit rude, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're not respecting my time.
I think, yeah, I assume nowadays we're much less idle, as in we're always like this preoccupied with something, but back then there's a lot more idle time. You're just like hanging out, not doing much.
Yeah, idle time was valued more than busy time. But now busy time is seen as being cool or professional, or that your life is productive. Productivity became more of the main driver of society. So it's like, if you're not productive, you're not a good person, or like you're being not a good person, but like you're lazy ass, something. You're lazy at home, right? So, but back then, being idle is the point. You work to be idle, so you get money. You work in Burmese culture. You work, you get money, and you chill for the whole 3 days. That's kind of mindset. You have enough money to chill for 3 days, and then if you have no money, just go out and work, right? So that's that mindset of idleness as a reward rather than as something you need to do. Because right now there's so many relaxation books, like how to relax. I'm like,
it's so strange.
For me, it's so strange.
Someone
just relax.
someone from like a generation ago, as in who hasn't lived through the past 30 years, would find that so strange.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now let me just summarize, like at the more abstract level, what we've just talked about. Yeah. Society over our lifetime, past 10, 20, 30 years, has essentially become a lot more itemized, a lot more compartmentalized. Everyone's more individualistic. Our time's been more commoditized. Yeah. Everything's just being boxed up.
Time equal money.
Everything's a lot more modular. So from becoming a larger web and intertwined family unit, where everyone just does things together and people have more idle time, things can just happen on the spot. Yes. Everyone's become a nuclear family. Your time is scheduled in. Everything's just like,
not just nuclear anymore. Everybody's single mother, single fathers.
We're beyond nuclear.
There are more percentages of single parents than our actual nuclear parents.
So we're beyond even,
Yeah. So things are even more modular than before. Yeah.
And I think it really shows in the stats. I think the biggest one is like depression and mental illness.
Yeah.
I think
rise of loneliness, depression, mental illness, and there is a point I want to make that online you can be connected to a community, a hobby community or something, or creative community.
So it's like we're in here.
Even the weird communities, the cultured communities.
So this is sort of answering the question of what have communities morphed into? Nowadays.
It became more digital communities, a Reddit community, right? There's a certain Reddit community you join and make comments, and there is a sense of like Twitter communities, and there is a sense of community in a more abstract sense. So you tend to have similar views to each other, and you tend to reinforce each other's views, and you tend to have more laughter when probably texting to each other. But there is that. Because of this but because of the shift in technology with social media and all that, so that it is possible to be connected to a community while being physically lonely. So those two can coexist at the same time, which is very strange. Because people say like, I'm lonely, and then they say I'm connected to like 3 communities or 10 communities. I'm like, bro, you're not lonely, but I am lonely. Because they are at home, right? They're physically lonely. So there is a sense of physical proximity that human beings require. There's a need to be.
Our physiology and biology.
Yeah, so our biology respond to be in a physical proximity to your family members or your best friends, or So if you're not physically close to someone all the time, or your partner, so all the time there is a sense of being disconnected or being lonely, even when you're actually very, very social on the internet. Like you can be making a lot of comments or messaging.
You're telling me Reddit mods are lonely?
They could be very lonely. Yeah, so you could be messaging, SMSing to 20 people at the same time every day.
Have 10,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah, you can be lonely. It's possible to have both. But back in the day, like that doesn't exist because when you have a, as we was talking about with family communities, like when you're actually in a community, you don't feel lonely. The loneliness literally, for me, that concept of loneliness does not even compute in my mind because I was very heavily integrated into the family community. That loneliness doesn't exist as an emotion. The emotion doesn't really exist. And then when I moved to Sweden and I felt lonely for the first time, I was confused about that emotion. Like, what is this emotion I'm feeling? Why am I feeling separated or something? And then I had to eventually come to terms with it. But yeah, so these days now, like especially 2020, 2022, right? People are a lot more, even more social in the digital space, and even less social
In the real
in
world.
the personal, the real world space.
Yeah. So what a community meant in the past, the type of community we had in the past,
Yes.
just doesn't exist as much now.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, before in the Western culture, there are a lot of church communities, right? People go to church every Sunday, right?
All right, that was a
So
strong
that was
bond.
that was the so in the industrial times, even to like in the last 20 years, it stopped happening in the last 20 years, but even before that, like there is a church, there is a religious community. I mean, people doesn't need to be like really religious or know the Bible to go there. Like I mean, it's to have a social life,
You
right?
go there to bond with
You go
your
to bond with your
local people.
neighbors and who believe in the same thing, right? And so you can, so there is an existence of nuclear family and the religious community. So the nuclear family, of course, you know, live with your family, mom and dad and children, brothers, and then Sunday or Saturday, right? You go to church and then you actually bond and have sing together. You know, I mean, I've been to a church, you know, Sunday, you know, church mass, and
You have.
it's quite fun.
What do they do there?
They just sing. They just sing and
That's
talk about
lovely.
religions, and then
You just go there having fun.
it's basically a mini party.
Yeah.
think
It's
of a,
a,
think of a
it's
party.
a mandated party.
Yeah, by God.
Oh,
God
man.
mandated party. Thank God for religious communities.
Oh, man.
So
I wonder if
mean,
the Pope's going to agree on that.
I mean, yeah, it's that's why religion is very important to some people because they don't necessarily need to believe, you know, in a strict scripture, in a sense, but they need the religion because of social aspects. Otherwise, they'll be lonely without the religious, the continual bonding.
Helps you bond to your
Yeah.
local
Yeah.
people.
So some community, some people in the UK or America, like African Americans or African British people, they tend to be more religious and they tend to go to church more often. So I see in near my house where I live, there's a church there which a lot of black British people go. Right, and they go there, and I see them every Sunday. I'm like, and they look very happy all the time. Whenever they come out of the church, they feel they have a like a higher mood of being connected with the community, right? So perhaps losing many of that ritual has lost in many of the like white British communities and you know other communities. The religious rituals have been lost over time, especially with the younger generation, and that is I think in my opinion that would be contributing to the loneliness
And mental illness, I assume,
and the
as well.
mental illnesses. Yeah.
So I do want to give just one more story just to demonstrate a clear transition
Okay.
of, you know, from 30 years ago to now.
Yes.
In terms of like having a community feeling and then now, for the most part, losing it. So I'm from the Bengali Muslim community of East London.
Yeah.
And growing up, I did feel a much stronger sense of community where the neighbors would know us, and you know, everyone would watch out for each other's kids. Everyone would know that kid is, you know, that kid is that so and so's and whatnot. Nowadays, it sort of still exists, but it's noticeably much less. People
Really?
care, yeah, much less about each other's kids. Everyone knows each other, of course, but obviously, if your neighbors, the closer you, this all naturally happens. I don't think none of this is like, you know.
Yeah. It's by physical proximity. Right?
Yeah,
Close
how
to a
much
kid,
time?
you'll be like, okay, I know this kid belongs to that parent, right?
Yeah.
So it's that.
From my point of view, it's a noticeable difference from myself growing up to now, and you know, for me and my nieces, I know that, you know, I'm more protective of my nieces than I assume. Well, my parents are, I think, overprotective, but yeah, I think, you know, on average, people felt safer, you know, letting the kids just play outside.
Yeah.
For me growing up,
Yeah.
and now much less so. There's a nice story that, well, it's not nice necessarily, but there's a story I think that demonstrates it, of like how it happened, where with my dad, you know, pretty much part of the fresh, you know, immigrant population. there was, more.
He's first generation immigrant.
He, I guess my granddad was technically the first.
Okay.
My dad came in as a teenager. I'm not sure whether you call that first or second.
Still first, I would say.
Still first, yeah.
They didn't born here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Still first generation then, yeah. So with my dad growing up, he was exposed to a lot more racism, which basically meant that the Bengali community sort of stuck together. What they do before they go to school is all of the kids would go one by one to all of the other kids' houses and wait for the other kid to come out, and then they would all go to school together just to make sure no one,
like a group going to school together.
just to make sure, yeah, just to
Interesting. So that they won't get kidnapped or something.
so they won't get jumped on.
Was that a thing?
That was a thing because of racism, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
So being violent towards the immigrant communities were common back in the day.
yeah. Anything different is is something that is picked on.
Interesting.
Of course, it doesn't exist as much now. So I think,
Now
I
it's
mean,
a lot more safer.
yeah, in general, yeah. So I think,
police force has improved a lot.
yeah, I found it really interesting when someone pointed out that is sort of one reason, out of many, that people were much more bonded before.
Yes.
And now there's less of a. This is just one example of how there's less of a reason to go out of your way to go and meet other people.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're saying that the outside factor was too antagonistic, that you need to protect your own vulnerable people, which are children.
This was just one driver, yeah.
One of the drivers of being the closer. I mean, this is the thing when the bigger the enemy, the closer the tribe,
Yeah.
right? So that kind of thing. So perhaps that helped in creating because there is a need to be that as well. Because if you don't protect your children, they're gonna get jumped on, as you said. So that's the necessity of doing that creates more bonding, more experiences of children being together and
You're going through a tough experience together.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting.
So here's a fun little fact. If you go through a stressful situation with someone and you come out of it well, that whoever you went through a stressful situation, you bond over quite strongly with.
Yes, yeah. Adversity create more friendships, deeper friendships, and as a family, right? If you're a family community, everybody go through it together. So that's that common adversity, especially in poor countries, right? There is a much deeper family community because everybody's poor, everybody's starving. So because people share food and stuff, so there's a bigger bonding. And the same thing with it's a psychological thing. So when you share when you have a stress situation, you get a lot of stress hormones in your body, and when you have another person being there with you, that stress hormone is being balanced by another hormone, the oxytocin, which is they call it the friendship hormone, or the love hormone. But it creates a sense of lessening the load, like the stress. You get less stress when you're with someone who's going through it together, and then by the end of it, everything gets better again. And then because you went through that situation, the physical bonding between the friends become much more deeper, as you said. Because there is a psychological element and neurological element of happening, that connection happening.
It makes sense for that to exist.
Definitely, yeah. The next thing I want to talk about is how does human relationships have changed over time from the relationships, but I mean like by marriage, relationships or boyfriend, girlfriend, that kind of culture. How has it changed in your experience at Bengali community, and then growing up over time and compared to the British culture overall, and how's that difference between them? Yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Relationships.
Relationships.
You're talking about like couples and all of that.
Couples, yeah.
Yeah. I think the most sort of glaringly obvious one is sort of the way you meet your partner.
Yes.
So growing up, it was very taboo if you found your partner yourself.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
It's a taboo.
Yeah,
people avoid it.
Yeah, if people met their partner in school, and then they married them, then like you just pretend it was an arranged marriage, essentially. What it means?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, what it means, what an arranged marriage means is that your family, like mom and dad, or extended family, they give, they send you across, either the partners that they think you would match with, and you say yes, yes, no, and if you'd like someone, you have a chance to meet them, and if you get along, then you get married. But there's no like long, like get to know you period. As in, you can meet each other over maybe several sessions, but you sort of have to decide after a short while.
Within a few months' time, basically.
Usually much shorter. You don't really get a
Much
few months.
shorter.
Yeah, you meet them maybe like, I don't know, at least once in person.
Hopefully, at least once.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like 2-3 times. But not usually not more than that
Yes.
before you actually decide. I mean, like, you can meet them more obviously, but like usually by the third time you'd be like, yeah, I want to marry this person. Of course, after that you can keep meeting. Um,
Well, who paid the dowry, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
so it's generally within Muslim culture, the man pays the dowry to the woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
The same with me.
Yeah.
When I grew up with
I
the
think
Muslim
in some other cultures, the woman pays the dowry, but yeah, not in Muslim culture.
So, and then the difference between the British culture of
Oh,
relationships.
nowadays it's a lot more common, a lot more accepted to find a partner in school, university, or just and you just tell your parents, hey, I know someone, let's go, I want to get married to them.
I love relationships became much more
Yeah.
emphasized before, because now a marriage is like, obviously you love the partner, that's why you're marrying, but it wasn't like that before.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
At all. It was I mean, we're talking about the modern society being transactional now, but marriages back then,
Oh yeah, that's
300
true.
years ago, were transactional.
So that's an interesting difference, isn't it? Even though a lot of things have become transactional, the marriages in the past were transactional, and now that they're
it's
less so.
more love, yeah. So marriages before, one with the arranged marriage in your Bengali community is you're marrying the family, right?
100%.
Yeah, you're not just marrying the partner. You're marrying the partner. I mean, not physically, but metaphorically, you're marrying the partner's family too. So their wider community. So you get integrated. The woman get integrated into the husband's community, the family community, and that's widely accepted. Right? It's expected of your wife being able to being socialized with the husband.
A lot of conflicts come from that, usually like if it's like usually within the Bengali Muslim community at least, the girl moves into the guy's house.
Yes.
And she lives in basically the guy's house with the in-laws and whatnot.
Yeah.
And typically there's like conflict between, or people are worried about conflict between the new daughter-in-law and then the mother-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the mother-in-law usually have the most power in terms of saying things, like in terms of resource allocation or anything like that. So and the mother tend to be the one that criticized the most to the daughter-in-law. They're like, you're not doing enough as a wife. Because I get that when I was younger in Burmese culture. Like that conflict happens all the time when my grandmother usually like criticized her daughter-in-law, like, you're not doing enough as the wife. And she does it openly, right? And it's a point of shame. So you keep them in line. You say that the grandmothers say that, or the mothers say that, to keep the daughter-in-law in line with the family's principles and virtues, because every family has their own principles of doing things, has a way of habits of doing things. And when the wife integrated into the husband's family, she can't bring her own habits to the husband family. That's not accepted. So she has to adapt to the families of her husband. And I mean, that is one of the skills as a woman being expected in Muslim communities, right? And that's the arranged marriage culture. But that is like strange and bizarre for people, in British culture or Swedish culture, who marry or who have a partner by love. Right, they meet somewhere, right? They either in school, either outside, either in a social environment. They meet someone and then they fall in love, or they have an attraction. Yeah, married by attraction was like, what is that in the arranged marriage community? I mean, of course there are some attractions, of course, but but here love marriages became highly valued, and there is a transition in my Burmese culture, which is interesting, where my grandmothers actually married out of love, even though romantic culture wasn't as prevalent back then. So my grandmothers married out of love, but her children married kind of with arranged marriage a little bit, and out of love. So the out of love, my mother married out of love as well, but that was unusual, like because most people marry by arranged marriage, and even if you marry out of love, if you have a partner out of love, my father family should bring the dowry to my mother's family. I mean, it act like the arranged marriage, right? So you fall in love, but the husband still have the responsibility to act like it's an arranged marriage.
Of course, yeah.
So it's you can't just run. You can run off, but it's highly shameful to run off with your partner.
Yeah.
Completely ignore your family. It's kind of shameful to do that, but yeah. But here in love cultures, love marriages and love relationships, it's much more. The focus is much more on your husband or your wife, not the extended family. You'll say hi and socialize during Christmas time. Everybody's come together and feel a bit awkward because you don't really meet their in-laws so much. I've been in a situation in Sweden where I go to my friend's house, and then my friend's his cousins or the in-laws are, and everybody felt awkward. There's that feeling of like we don't know what to expect, that kind of unexpected.
So people
feeling.
are less well integrated.
Yeah, less well integrated, and I mean they don't. Some people don't like each other, in the family. And people don't normally say it, but it's a one you meet once in a year, right? Family
Christmas,
occasion, Christmas or anything. So there is some awkwardness, right? But that's why I kind of find it funny, but that awkwardness doesn't really exist in my family. But it is normal to have that, and you're focused more on your partner, and whether you actually love the partner, and if you fell out of love, it is encouraged to leave the relationship, right? Divorce wise or break up, In my culture, breakup is highly shameful, because when you break out of divorce, you're treated as less. Not I don't want to say less of a person, but like your social status goes down in the wider community. So you just basically you're separated. There's a word, Burmese word to say separated person. It means it's a shameful word you say to insult someone.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So my mother, there are some cases where she and my mother and my father clash several times over their marriage where big conflicts happen, and then my mother wants to divorce, right?
Really?
Yeah, but because the conflict was very big. But then she has to control herself
because of that.
Because she really cares about her social status, like a lot, and in the community. So she said like, I can't divorce because if I do, I mean, she actually made a good choice not to divorce because they eventually work it out.
That's good.
Relationship they work it out over time. Big conflicts then seems like small conflicts now. So
it's good that they work it out.
But it is a way to control your own desires to divorce, because divorce happen in Burma culture, of course, and so even then, like there is a strong reinforcement of having a long-term relationship rather than short-term. But now, like in a modern relationship, now you see there's a lot of casual relationships, which is very bizarre to me that it happened all out of them, because I mean that's the next step, right? If you are if you have technology, especially with the rise of Tinder, right? With the rise of Tinder and all the dating apps, the relationships become much more casual, much more transactional. So like, okay, we meet, we go out and date, and then that's it, right? There's no long-term bonding. There's no long-term. I mean, it is expected not to have that because you're busy. You're in a city. You're busy with work. You have some fun.
What that tends to do is the pair bonding circuitry ends up fusing out, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. The human beings have a very strong bonding with
your partner.
Your partner. The dating apps, it's somehow disconnecting the pair bonding mechanism of the brain, and if it keep happening, we might not have families anymore. Like, we might only have casual relationships, and then suddenly you randomly settle down with someone closest at that moment in time. Just okay, this is the person I just met at this point in life. Like, let's just settle down and have kids, right? So that's kind of how it happens now. But in the past, it wasn't like that.
So, if I may, let me just summarize everything we've talked about
Yes.
till now, just really quickly. I think there's some things positive and some things negative, and I think they're sort of at a clash. And so, as a society, we're not sure how to balance the pros with the cons. The pros is by everything becoming more transactional and modular, everyone becoming more individualistic. On the one sense, as individuals, you are able, and freer to pursue what makes you happy. But
That your careers or your hobbies.
whatever fulfills you the most, right? That's on the positive. At least you are freer to do what you want.
Yes.
But the negatives that we've hinted at, but this is, we haven't really spelled out, is this transactional nature of everything. It has come to an extreme, and maybe we're not clear. It's not clear to most people what the spectrum actually is.
It's accelerated by the apps.
Accelerated by the apps, yeah.
Social media apps or dating apps.
Yeah.
It makes it even more
transactional.
transactional.
So the spectrum of that transactional or transactional anything lies on is either a long-term relationship, mutually beneficial relationship, versus transactional. So if you go and buy a coffee, that's transactional. On the one hand, is good. You don't want to have to, know and befriend the barista before they make you a cup of coffee.
It might be good to do that.
It might be still good to do that anyway. But no, I don't want to know you.
I give you money, you give me coffee. Rather than like, can you give me nice coffee, please?
Yeah, but in Starbucks, they've at least simulated the long-term mutually beneficial relationship style by writing down your name.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That mimics that.
It's a mimic, yeah, but it doesn't mean the barista will remember your name.
They don't, but at least they've made an effort, which is nice, right?
Yeah.
So the clash basically is by making everything transactional, what we've actually done is moved away from long-term, mutually beneficial, like highly like value-driven, goal-driven, not necessarily, but like shared value, shared goal-driven,
dreams,
shared dream-driven sort of activity or like relationship forming.
Yeah.
So I think the sort of like downside is by everyone becoming more freer to do what they want, we've just in a sense cut off ourselves from these more meaningful relationships.
Yes.
Because we just don't have to. If you had to form a relationship with a barista, you maybe
out of necessity,
you might become more fulfilled. If you had to befriend your neighbors because you all have to go to school together,
out of fear of being assaulted.
Yeah, you become that bonds you together.
Yes.
Are there any other examples?
Yeah, like having let's say right when you at the moment where you can order food from food apps. Just order food, and then the delivery guy will just come, right, and then give it to you.
Yeah,
but
just say
from my perspective, from my family, right, back in Burma. You call your aunt or uncle or something.
Yeah,
like,
I want to eat your food.
Can I get your food today?
I just have a real craving for.
I don't want to cook.
Yeah.
My aunt like, oh, of course, come and eat here.
Yeah.
And then I go and eat there, or they give food.
My sister makes the best cake, so we just like call her up. I want this and that.
Yeah, exactly, right. So you call your family to give you the delivery.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to cook.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's more meaningful. It's not as free, not as transactional.
Yeah, you can't choose to have Japanese food
Yeah.
from your family.
But it's more meaningful. It's more fulfilling.
It's more meaningful. And another
it's more
thing
human.
we haven't discussed, maybe you can add that in to another one, is eating. So social eating was heavily emphasized in the communities.
Oh, we haven't mentioned that.
Yeah, let's mention.
We've lost social eating.
Yeah, completely lost. Yeah, and when I was younger, we have these called maybe this is for religious perspective. So we have these religious charities, so charity events, and my mom loved to do charity events because you basically invite 200 homeless people.
Oh yeah, I love this story.
Yeah, 200 homeless people, and they come to the mosque, they come to the religious residence, and then my mom would order the cooks, so the cooks will have bean soup, right, and then rice, and then chicken curry or beef curry, right. They do that, and then they basically cook it in huge batches, so that 200 people can eat it at once, and then my mom and my family also eat together with the homeless people. So everybody eat together, poor and rich, right? Everybody in one place just eating together. And it's a very bright memory in my life to go to those social charity events. And I love eating together with people. Like, it was really fun. Like, and then there's like one guy with a bucket. So there's a guy with a bucket full of dal, full of bean soup, and he would just give it to each person with the bucket. Right?
And they'd appreciate it so much.
They appreciate it so much. And the idea of social eating is psychologically is actually give you more pleasure to eating. So the food tastes better when you eat with your family or together with the community.
And now we just eat in front of the TV.
So, but no, it happened gradually. So cooking was also one of the things that it and original from families. So families cook together, have that common recipes. Like you don't go to a restaurant. You do go to a restaurant and eat, but like the family cooking is heavily, right?
Growing up, we have dishes named after like there's one dish named after my granddad. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's just like he liked to have having fried eggs in a specific way.
Yeah.
So we're like, we want his fried eggs.
Yeah. Okay.
and it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So the family, cooking was heavily reinforced within the family and the community, right? And as I said, like you don't. Back then, there's no delivery apps, Deliveroo or Just Eat, right? There's no food apps, but you just call your family like, I don't want to cook today. Can I eat? And then my aunt would be like, of course, come and eat here, or she actually would come and give me the food, right? And it's like that sort of food bonding is heavily emphasized, and then gradually cooking start to become lost in the Western community, Western culture. That cooking become less and less important when the restaurant culture became more and more prominent. So it's more cool and more socially high social status. People go to restaurants to eat, right? Or go to and also the rise of cheap fast food doesn't help because that allows people to think that cheap food, fast food was the norm, and the cooking was not the norm. So people eat a lot more fast food, so their health worsened over time.
This is such a strange time we've lived through.
Yeah, it's so strange. So the cooking knowledge is one of the cooking knowledge of the whole generation in British culture was lost.
It's
completely lost. And then the obviously the grandmothers can cook, but like the mothers can't cook anymore, and then the children can't cook, and then everybody now rely on food apps.
I meet a lot of people that are proud to not be able to cook.
Yes, which is very strange to me. For me, like before I went to university, my mom told me to cook by myself, which helped me a lot because I actually ate a lot more like curries and then roast, and I can cook a lot of different things. But my friends in my flatmates in university, they just cook like bacon. They put bacon on the pot and then they just eat that as dinner. I'm like, why are you eating bacon at dinner? Because that's the only thing they cook. And then here I'm just cooking like beef curry and then like chicken roast, and then they're like
on batch. I remember.
I cook on batch for the whole week. So I cook in university. I cook on Sundays or Mondays, and I cook for the whole week. And then my flatmate was like, who are you cooking for? And then I cook for myself, and I put them all in the refrigerator so I can eat them for the whole week. So like I get to eat food that my mom taught me to cook, and then I know how to cook, and it really helps me. But I see my friends eating very unhealthy food, and they would order food online, right? And then they can't cook, and like it's a strange dichotomy where like food is so available, as a transaction, as you said. Food became more and more transactional. So food is more available while you get less healthy over time. So you stop cooking, and then now it's, as you said, like it's more of a proud thing to say that you can't cook. And then I rely on my food apps all the time because I have more money to do so, which is actually not a good thing, right? You should cook, but cooking is now resorted to YouTube recipe videos. And like recipe videos now, people want to cook. That I look at the recipe video, and then back then, if you want to cook, you learn from your mother. Your mother teach you how to cook, right? So there's that generational knowledge, being transferred from one generation to the next about cooking, and then everybody eat together, and eating together is so common between families and between friends, and then that's lost over time now. Because as you said, even now, like we're eating in front of a TV, which is from a brain perspective. when you're eating by yourself watching a TV, you actually your brain signal for being full doesn't activate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you actually tend to eat more when you're watching TV.
Mm.
Yeah, by
Yeah, I do
comparison.
find when I'm eating with people, I just get full with
Yeah,
less. Yeah.
you get full more because when you're eating by yourself or especially in front of a TV, your there's a ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone. So the hunger hormone and then the fullness hormone, they don't activate as much, and then but so that you tend to eat more to feel more full. But when you eat with someone or a group of people, you eat a lot less, and because you're also sharing, you're laughing together, right? There is more talking and social, so you actually enjoy the food more and enjoy the friendships and friendly interactions more, and then you actually don't eat as much. You get less. So people, you can say like people get less fat by eating with their loved ones. But yeah, eating alone in front of a TV. I mean, if you do it, it's fun to do it, but don't do it too often.
I remember the transition, man. I'm not sure if you do or if you had this, but growing up, we weren't allowed to sit to eat in the living room except on some special occasions. But like, if you ate, you had to eat in the kitchen, and you
Yes.
had to eat. Basically, everyone ate together growing up,
Yes.
and then slowly over time, first everyone would eat at the same time, and then slowly, everyone has a different schedule. So some people started eating late, and then slowly people just started eating in the living room.
Yeah.
It's just like
Or in
now,
their own rooms, even in the bedroom. Now children tend to
yeah,
eat in their more in the bedroom than
yeah,
in the dining room.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the kitchen is less of like a community area
Yeah, the kitchen. I mean, the Western culture, the nuclear family,
or dining room. Yeah.
the dining room was the center of the nuclear family because father goes out to work, mother is a housewife or go to work, right? And but at the end of the day for dinner, everybody come together to eat, and that's a ritual that everybody do it. And it can be awkward, like the parents will ask how their teenage daughter is doing. The teenage daughter doesn't want to say what the emotional going to a boyfriend or girlfriend. But there is a connection between the parents and the children, so they have more knowledge of their children by eating together. They just random talking, like how's your friends doing, and then the son or daughter will say, oh, my friend's doing this one, oh I want to go to play piano with my friend or something like that. So the parents have more knowledge of their children.
Yeah,
overall.
you're supposed to talk and yeah.
Yeah, understand their children, right? But because this ritual is getting more and more lost, and children are eating by themselves rather than with their parents, or the parents eating by themselves, or they eat in the workplace, or something like that along those lines, and this social ritual is gone as well. So not only do they not eat as a family or a community anymore, everybody eat alone, and something big was lost along the way.
It's yeah, just to reiterate, like within our lifetimes, we're thankfully sort of been able to witness a life while we were kids where
Yes.
there were many things that bonded us together and we felt a sense of community, right?
Yes.
Nowadays, so many things that bonded us to our local community, to the people around us,
Yes.
have just disappeared right in front of our eyes,
Yes.
very gradually. And now that we've connected the dots, it's sort of much clearer to see that why people don't feel as bonded to the people around them.
Or feel more lonely as a result.
It's all of these tiny little changes that have happened over the past, more than 30 years, but we can just talk about 30 years.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, the rise of, I mean, you can say that social media caused loneliness, or the social or food apps cause individual eating. You can kind of say that, but perhaps you can say the opposite way, where cultural shifts happen on their own, and then the apps or the technology fulfill the demand. So
chicken or the egg.
Yeah. So chicken or the egg thing, right? So which come first, right? And perhaps the demand happens first, and then the companies that come to follow to fulfill the demand, or the opposite happen where the social media cause more of the loneliness, or the food apps cause more of individual eating. So there is perhaps that's both, right? It's a dynamic relationship between technology and relationships, human friendships and relationships. So yeah, we have to be careful when we adopt a new technology, whether how it will affect us in the long term. It's very gradual, but we don't notice it over time. But 30 years later, but looking at, oh wow, a lot of things have changed.
So now there's going to be an entire generation of kids growing up, not even knowing that these things existed that would bond them to each other.
Yeah, that's wild. That's mental.
At least we're like, at least we
At least
tasted this.
Yeah, at least we have a reference point
Yeah.
to stories to talk about.
Yeah, and we know that you can be best friends with the cousin, like that you can feel so well bonded.
Yes.
These kids, they don't even know it's possible.
Yeah, because they don't know the alternative of what they're growing up. I mean, I don't want to say, you know, like the bad things about, you know, single parents or anything like that, but a child being born from a single parent household, they tend to struggle more in academic and social security. I mean, that's widely researched by psychologists and social psychologists that, you know, children who grew up with one parent only, with either just the mother or just the father, they tend to have emotional issues, and nothing to do with how badly or how good the mother or father was, but it's just the children didn't have enough people or like different types of generation to guide them somehow, right? Because we grew up with our grandparents, with our parents, and our aunts, cousins, right? And they shape us as a person.
So many points of feedback.
Yeah, so many points of feedback, and we are socialized because we are learned to socialize with all of them at the same time. We tend to, our increased sociability is higher, right? But for a child who grew up in a single household and then they don't have much family contact, right? And those children, they tend to have only one source of reference with their one parent and perhaps their friends, and that's it. And they tend to have behavioral issues as well. They tend to become more addictive, or, you know, they tend to have risky behaviors, and, you know, all of the different issues. And it is a social shift right now when children don't understand how to be bonded with a family. Like how they don't know how to, they don't understand the taste of having a community, right? A very bonded community, and that could have huge cultural, you know, like impacts down the line when they become older. So their generation will become older, and they will lead the country too, right? Their generation will become the leaders of the next generation, right? And think about you know, children who grew up, you know, not knowing the taste of communities. Perhaps they will be the ones who will reintroduce the community.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, because they have a hunger for it.
They're like,
why am I life like this? I want a different. So perhaps, in a good way,
bounce back the other way.
Bounce back, yeah, to the community.
Hopefully,
yeah, if a good thing happened. But in the other strand, like it become more stratified.
Even worse, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got this entire like spectrum of things that could happen.
Yes. Yeah, a range of things. Or both of them can happen at the same time. Let's say if you want a child right now, hypothetically speaking, and would you want to raise a child in this culture?
I mean, I think the one thing I don't like is like just having just a single house for the kid to run around. I think you need, because for me, I'm living in central, you know, like basically like in an apartment, and I think kids need a lot more space.
Yes, they do.
That's one problem I have. So I mean, maybe like outside of a big city, so I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. No, I mean in a cultural sense. Do you want them to grow up in this culture?
Thing is, I would try to have, sort of enforce sort of my own sort of culture, if that makes sense, you know, like eating together and meeting
so
family.
You try to be as much connected with the family as possible for the child, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's important.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, but I have stories of like my mom and his siblings running around the entire neighborhood, right? Their play space is not one house, but the entire district.
And they're safe.
And they're safe. Yeah, they're safe enough. And then and then my mom said she will find a tire, like a car tire, and she was use a stick. So she used a stick to roll the tire. So the 2-3 kids will run around with the tire. That's the game they play. My mom said so. she did that with her brothers.
That's
My
so
mom is
funny.
more like a tomboy when she was younger, so she played like a boy, and she basically rolled the tire. So that's and the entire district was their playground, so they could roll the
That's
tire
so fun.
for like 5 streets. Like the like 5 streets were
Mm.
quite long streets.
I wish kids could do that now.
Yeah, I
Like
wish
you can't.
kids
Too many
are.
cars, probe. I don't know what the reason is, but yeah,
Yeah,
people are more scared.
it's not just that. It's maybe because helicopter parenting become much more because parents become much more paranoid about their child safety. I mean, there is a good reason to be paranoid. Of course, I mean, people are not nice, right? People can accidents can happen and something kids can be kidnapped. I mean, the thing is in this culture, like in London, it's very safe. Like children can run around and nobody would do anything. But there is that helicopter parenting or like paranoia feeling that parents have that actually impeding the child's freedom.
You
Or
think this is
freedom
gonna get
of,
worse?
I think it might get worse, yeah, over time because especially when the whole responsibility of parenting is put on one person or two person, right? All the responsibility. So that person, the mother or the father who's a single parent, right? They all the responsibility. So they are really worried about the child's safety. But if the responsibility of parenting is shared among the community, then the child's safety is shared among the community. So everybody look out for the child, right? And
Now,
when
most people uh, that sort of village raising a child is so long ago
yeah.
that it's not even a memory for most people.
Yeah, it's not even a memory anymore. Yeah, but the child's safety is the child is safe because many adults are watching the child. That's usually the case because if one person is watching the child and trying to raise the kid, like obviously you'll be paranoid. Like, what if my child is gone away and doesn't come back home? But if you're in a tight neighborhood where everybody knows each other, they're like, "Where's my child?" And then your neighbor can answer where the child went, right? So
Oh yeah, he's in my place. He's eating
yeah,
cookies.
I've been spoiling him with cookies, right? So if your neighbor is more connected or your family is more connected, you can just ask around, where's my child went? No, he's over there playing, right? I mean, the whole area is their playground, and children are very playful, extremely
Yeah, I think they need.
annoyingly
Yeah.
so playful. I mean, it's good for their brain development. So because children play to learn social cues, social rules, and they play to even play fighting. Like even kids love to do play fighting to feel to test the limits of violence, right? To test the limits, like when is hitting too much is actually too much, right? So they're actually learning a lot of social rules, and these sort of games have disappeared over time. Now children are like parents are like just give them iPads. The babies are looking at the iPad like glued to the iPad, and then obviously the iPad is nice because you can watch cartoons and stuff,
Endless stimulation.
endless cartoons and all that. So, but these little games the children play are extremely important for their social development. It's been proven that the social games that children play they have huge impact on their brain development, the cultural social development, and impeding the child not to play or telling them not to play or giving them an alternative of iPads. I mean, if you want them to shut up, you can give them an iPad, right? But it's not a good long-term solution.
It seems to me that one of the biggest long-term trends we're seeing is we're just artificially mimicking things that our biology and physiology and psychology needs, like
Yes.
that bonding and sense of connection. Right now, it's like through Instagram and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like and I think this is just going to continue. What's going to continue is the trend of artificially mimicking what our biology, physiology, and psychology needs. So rather than having something real, like real meaning what we had in the past, and
Yes.
actual people in the community in physical presence,
Yes.
we're going to have more of screens, things, apps mimicking things. But also now, over the next 10, 20 years, like robotics is going to become more and more popular. AI is going to become more and more popular just because we are on that inflection point in terms of sort of where they're good enough to start coming out and become
Yes.
commercialized.
Yes.
Right at first, you can you might get like in terms of friends and best friends, you might get like an AI chatbot.
becoming your
essentially
best friend.
becoming your best friend, you know. So
Yeah.
you can imagine Siri, along with the voice, which you can do now. Maybe you can give Siri a personality first. Secondly, enable memory, and then Siri has a memory.
Yes. So you can
So
remember the things you said.
enable conversation mode.
Yeah.
So now you can talk to Siri as if you're in a conversation, and Siri remembers everything you've done in the past, and you've also given Siri a personality
Yes.
that you've chosen.
Yeah.
You must start off like that.
I have heard now, like, I mean, it's probably not everybody's doing it, but I've heard that younger teenagers now actually talk to their AI phones now, like Series or whatever the partner. I mean, if they want to tell a secret to someone, but not to their friend, the secret is too much to tell your friend,
Yeah.
right? They would tell it to the AI, which is quite interesting because they grew up with the technology, right? For them, smartphone is their life, right? They've been growing up with it. Now they think, oh, I can just talk to my AI, and that is quite normal enough for them to not that nobody raises an eye among their peers. Oh, of course, I do the same. You know, you talk to your Siri, I talk to my Siri. You know, so perhaps as AIs are more and more sophisticated, as they have more personality or more, their memories are better, or their conversational style, right? So because robots, AIs have a weird inflection with the voice that is robotic. You can tell it's robotic, but perhaps when that uncanny valley of the voice get conquered, and then you actually have real sounding AI that sound like a person, actual person talking. Perhaps people will, because it's mimicking a friendship, right? So people will actually say more of the secrets or whatever they want to,
They would start feeling more and more bonded,
more
wouldn't they?
bonded, yeah, and then more let off their emotions to an AI, and that might become more normal. Yeah.
So I think it could get to a point where, and it doesn't have to be Siri. Just the point is just that essentially a chatbot could act as your best friend,
Yes.
and people might, especially, if like look how addictive Facebook has made have Facebook have made their products,
Yeah.
and even with YouTube, like some years ago, some people might remember there was this huge pushback against the algorithm because it sent off people into like black holes in a sense of like, or rabbit holes in a sense of like the flat earthers and a lot of other things where
Yeah,
it was super addictive.
the recommendation engine
Yeah, it's so good.
was yeah so good that if you watch one video of a flat Earth video,
It would recommend you because it was
you
so
recommend
yeah, more and
more
more
of
and
it,
more,
and then
yeah.
you become absorbed in the same
Because
community.
it's just optimizing watch time,
Yeah,
and so you just
optimizing.
yeah.
Yeah, your interest in your watch
Yeah,
time.
so it's doing that successfully, but the adverse effect it had on society was that people just ended up watching like flat earther videos more than they should and conspiracy videos more because those are more interesting.
Yeah, no, though they have more widespread views
Yeah,
because they're controversial, and
yeah,
then
it's interesting. Yeah,
they're I mean, for our brain is a new information, so
yeah,
is a bigger dopamine boost.
yeah.
The thing with that fake news is that fake news get more dopamine boosts because if you say like a celebrity has died, like Kanye West, right? You just died yesterday, like holy shit, Kanye West really died, right? That news can go off in weird directions, and I mean that's an example, but other smaller type of fake news, they tend to give big dopamine boosts because it's a sudden surprise of something, and then without fact checking it, without actually knowing the truth, right? Those conspiracy theories or anything, they can take off and viral. They can become more viral as a result, and the recommendation engine is making it more viral because more people watching, more people recommend it.
Yeah, so imagine that the AI of the future is even more powerful than what we had a few years ago,
Yes.
and it's optimizing, I don't know, whatever other criteria for the chatbot. Do you think it's not going to get to a point where people think it's not going to, it's your best? Come on, that's almost an inevitability.
Yeah. If chatting become more and more common as a way of communication, because like people have less calls now, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
it's so
they call,
annoying when someone calls you out of the blue. As in,
Yeah.
like, like why? Just text, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Just text, bro. Like I can't text you back immediately. I'll text you back in 2 hours. or like calling. Another thing is like communication has first we have person to person communication, and then first we have calls, and then now texting, and then like it has, and then more and more of in asynchronous communication, which is
It's much more
texting. It's much more
convenient.
convenient for the individual, but as a long-term communication, you just don't feel as connected with the person. And texting become more and more widespread. So people on the internet, like my sister, or like they have best friends, quote unquote best friend, but they actually never talk to them on call, only texting. So they met them on a community,
Oh wow.
on a online community, right? And it's only texting, and then you actually say your real big secrets, like your family
Oh, because
secrets
it
to them.
feels a bit more like removed when you're
Yeah,
typing,
no,
isn't it?
no. There is perhaps some alluring feature of texting, which is that you can share certain things much more easily, and you can actually think before you text, right? There's when your call is more spontaneous, right? You have to actually formulate a sentence out like spontaneously, but on texting you can actually think before you text, and nobody will care if you text 10 minutes later if you're actually thinking and texting. So perhaps that alluring thing is helping people to form friendship without never called, and then who has never met in real life. I mean, another example is I had a gaming. I joined a gaming community because I played a certain game and online, a multiplayer, and I have like 10 friends, which I've text a lot often to play games together. I never met them in real life. I don't even know what they look like, what their real names are. I just call them by their game name, their avatar name. So I just call them by the game name. Bro, shall we play? And then I text them, and then they text me, oh, let's play. And then I play, and then I don't know who they are or whatever. But we have these ideas about the game. We talk about the game, and we form friendships on the game itself. But once the game is over, once the servers are shut down, your friends have disappeared because the game was the thing that's keeping the friendship together. So once the hobbies or the game or any point of contact disappears, all the community just collapse immediately, and then you just move on to another community.
That's interesting. My brother, one of his closest mates, now actually he met through a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and they're still friends outside of the game,
Okay. So
but
that he has moved on from
yeah,
gaming friend,
off platform.
yeah, gaming friend to an actual friend.
Yeah.
But most people don't make that jump.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just stuck.
It has to be a proactive step, you know.
It's a proactive step. Yeah.
So now going back to that chatbot,
Yeah,
best
chatbot.
friend in 10 years' time, say.
Best friend chatbot.
Yeah. uh,
Best friend Siri.
best friend Siri. Yeah, just say in 10 years' time, and then so your best friend growing up is this chatbot, for the kids who are growing up in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And they share all of their secrets, and it knows exactly what to say to cheer them up. It helps them, with the homework. They can just talk to it whenever.
Yeah.
And then in 20, 30 years' time, suddenly there's an option to download or upload their best friend chatbot to an Android body.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you want to install an AI program.
Yeah.
For a chatbot.
Who you've been talking to growing up.
Yeah.
And knows all
so
of
you can upload that to an actual body.
To an actual body.
Yeah, and that body would start acting like an actual friend. Interesting. Yeah. So if you grow up with the chatbot, since you were a baby, right? You grew up with them, and since your teenager time, chatbot has been a part of your life, and the chatbot is sophisticated enough to mimic our emotions, right? And if that's the case, perhaps the next step, could we upload that to an actual friend body or Android body, robot body, and could that make it less common or more common, right? But I have a thing with the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
If we talk about the uncanny valley with robots, humanoid robots in particular, is that we human beings, our facial recognition part of the brain is highly evolved compared to. It's a very small part on the left side of the brain, and it's very small.
I think, but it detects the tiniest of changes. Yeah.
It detects the minuscule tiniest of muscle changes, and you learn with life experience. So the children learn that from their parents and their friends, the communities, and the facial. You see people. You go on the street. You see so many faces, people. So the brain has accumulated like millions of patterns of faces, and then when you have a robot who mimic a face, mimic speaking, or some sort of muscle movement, it looks weird. It looks odd, right? And we can even detect that in movies, when the movies use CGI characters. So there's one thing what happened where in Star Wars: The Force Awakens, the number 6, right? So November 7th. So the new trilogy, the first movie, the Dune trilogy, they introduced Leia, the
Oh
the,
yeah, yeah.
the younger Leia, right? And she looked odd because they use CGI character
Mm.
for Leia,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And
mm.
you see immediately. I mean, she looks realistic enough to exist in that movie, but you can see immediately it's a CGI
Something's a bit
character.
off.
Yeah, sound a bit off. So the uncanny valley, perhaps the android direction may happen, but because of the uncanny valley, people might stay away from it. But only fixed towards just the chatbot only. Because texting right now, texting just for friends is normal. Like you never have to meet anyone.
Mm.
Call them. They still be your best friend, but only through texting. And people are more. It's normal to have that. So
The
perhaps
the
we'll just
so I
stick
think
to
this is one thing we disagree on actually. So I
yeah.
think which is interesting where thing is right, like I have no problem with there just being a chatbot, but like what it is, there's certainly be a smaller percentage of people, some percentage of people that number one don't mind the uncanny valley,
Okay. Yeah.
and number two, it doesn't have to be. It could be an artistic version of a human, of a person,
Okay.
like an anime character, for example,
Yes.
or even any other artist, or even like a pet.
Yeah.
Maybe like a talking dog, talking
A
cat.
talking dog, talking cat. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's your best friend.
I see that as more
It might start out
it
like that.
it might happen that way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it might because the only way to conquer uncanny valley is to not have robotic
that's an
humanoid
easier
robots,
way of
but
doing it. Yeah.
actually have cute pets, cute
Mm.
robot pets, and then they talk to you and they talk, have the same personality as the chatbot that you grew up with. And you upload the chatbot into the robot pet, and the robot pet will accompany you to life
Mm.
and will accompany you to all your struggles.
Yeah, and to be fair with what you've said, in terms of CGI, we've had the Uncanny Valley for like what 20, 30 years now, and we're not really past it
No,
yet.
yeah.
So
I don't think it's possible to pass. It's a huge.
yeah, I mean with CGI, it's one thing, right? I think maybe the latest AI systems might be able to pass it
Okay.
pretty soon,
Yeah.
but you never know. It hasn't happened yet.
No.
Um,
I mean, robots are expensive overall, so probably normal people can't afford them.
yeah. So what I'm basically saying is,
They're expensive.
it might take even longer than 30 years, which and 30 years is a generation. So it might take one or two generations to go past the Uncanny Valley in terms of robotics. You
For
know.
sure, for sure.
But by the end of the century, perhaps, you know?
Yeah, by the end of the century,
Yeah.
it'd be more normal to have robot maids. Right? There's a game I play called Detroit Become Human. It's basically a game of three androids gaining consciousness and then gaining morality. So in in the game where the robots have taken over much of the lower level labor those jobs that you have to do by physical
Hard
labor,
manual work,
hard
yeah.
manual labor. The robots have taken over of that, including maid job or like butler job, that kind of thing. So they've taken over, and then now the robot humans are violent against them, against the robot, and they start to, because they're mimicking human emotion overall. They start to have stress. So
Ah,
the robot has stress response to
that's
their
so
being,
interesting.
because the humans are violent towards them, right, for whatever reason, because they're drunk or whatever, right? And so the robots start to have stress response, and then because they have a stress response, they actually fight back. They actually
Oh, wow.
become violent back,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then there are crimes in the game. You have to investigate the crime that the android actually killed their owner, because they're mimicking the stress response, and then they just don't know what to act, because the android has been abused for so many years. So some trick happened in their
Programming.
programming, and then it just became violent.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a very interesting game. I really love Detroit Become Human.
Not sponsored, don't worry.
No sponsor.
I wish.
It's a interesting futuristic view of whether robots can integrate into society. I mean, they look more human, right? They have human type of speaking, but you can actually upgrade your robot. So you can have Mate 1.0 to Mate 3.0, which is much more complex and sophisticated. They can do a much complex job of cleaning the house and things like that. So you can actually upgrade your robot, and it's cheap enough that normal people can afford it. Because in the Detroit Become Human world, like robots are very cheap to buy them. I mean, it's not buying like half of your car, like something like that. So it's not.
Understood, yeah.
So it's very interesting how if robot become integrated, what form it would look like. and will it be accepted by society? That's very important too.
So just to wrap up this future trend a bit more, it does seem like there's instead of sort of bouncing back into more of a community feeling, people are just becoming more and more isolated, but they're going to use tech, maybe
To
first
substitute
other
that
actual
isolation.
people, physical, because real people are a lot more variable. They don't always make you happy, but your chat bot is always going to be there for you. It's never going to disagree with you. And once there's a physical form, cat, dog, actual humanoid, android, yeah, like that can start mimicking like the physiology, but like I see that trend happening more than anything else.
Yeah, either the new generation that grew up without the social community structure, so they have a hunger for it. They want to return to the past.
But the younger generation,
Yeah, but on the other side, on other side of the generation, they want to become even more towards
yeah,
isolation,
because real people are scary because
real
they don't.
people are risky. Yeah, so they can break your heart. Friendship breaking up can break your heart. Your relationship breaking up can break your heart. So perhaps people who are afraid of losing, or afraid of conflict, afraid of
They don't want anyone to disagree with them.
yeah, they want people to they want full agreement, or they want an ever present friend, which is actually quite hard to come by.
No, not in
In
real life.
like people have their own goals and own dreams and own responsibilities, and your friends is not available to you 24/7. It's not physically possible. So maybe there is a need for having a friend 24/7. Perhaps the AI chatbot can, if sophisticated enough, they can substitute that 24-hour friendship demand. And perhaps that's a good thing, perhaps for people emotional development, or perhaps it's a bad thing because they actually completely substitute friendships, right? Or another thing could happen is if chatbot become more and more normal, actual human beings might mimic the chatbot itself.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
teenagers or younger people, because all everybody's doing is a chatbot, but they will text like a chatbot.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which is because humans can mimic technology as well. So it happened both ways. So if that happens, people become more and more chatbot like.
You're saying people might learn to just become more robotic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Because that increased their friendships. So because
Oh yeah, because there would be some people that actually want real human, like
yeah,
physical
of
contact
course.
and
but
bonds.
they
Yeah.
expect a
But
chatbot.
they know other people want a chatbot-like experience.
Yes,
So
exactly.
they'll try to be as much like a chatbot as possible.
Yes, because chatbot.
How was your day today?
So chatbot is the normal.
Yeah.
So the humans are mimicking the normal.
Yeah.
Right. So
bloody hell.
So that could become another trend.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, man. That's mental.
That's mental. Yeah. But it has happened before where like people actually mimic the technology rather than itself. Right. So and it started to have weird behaviors started.
Like what?
Like when social media came about, right? The liking with the liking algorithm, right? So people tend to expect likes from your family, right? Or you have to give likes, otherwise you get shamed by like, why don't you give likes to me? That kind of thing. So so people has to adapt to the technology or mimic the technology in order to have a relationship, fulfilling family or relationship. And let's say for a fact that a teenager start to mimic a chatbot behavior and start to, because they think that's the way to get friends, right? So they just mimic the chatbot, and maybe they will get a friend, right? But the topic of conversation will become much more how can I say it, much more agreeable, too agreeable, to the point where you actually don't actually feel that connected to the person as a friendship, why? Because everybody's like, oh, I agree with you completely. Because the chatbot say I agree with you completely all the time. So, and maybe disagreements become much more difficult to bring up, or conflicts become much more difficult to settle. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but yeah, if that happens, it will be quite strange indeed if humans start to.
Yeah, fingers crossed there'll be a move. I mean, we're not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but it has to be done in a sort of much more ethical, conscious way.
Of course.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening for us.
That's all for today's topic. Yeah, thanks for listening, coming by.
Hope you enjoy it.
Yes, hope you enjoy it. Have a nice day.
Ciao. Bye.